All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all honor, glory, and praise unto Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone for teaching us all this truth through well. Shalom to the Akim out there in the Akwath, listening and learning, increasing in the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai. I wanted to go into Revelations 13, all right, mainly here in verse 2, the mouth like a lion, representing the English, okay, the Brits, Great Britain, or what was known as Great Britain, what gave power to Babylon. That was the mouthpiece that gave power to this empire, okay, because out of them came all these policies, and out of them came all these this nation that happens to be America, okay, that is known in the Bible as Babylon the Great, and the bear representing Russia, and the leopard representing the first empire, under this Edomite rulership, which started with the Greeks, So let me start off at Revelations 13 and 2. It says, "And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority." Now that lion, it can, it started off with Great Britain, which Great Britain was part of NATO and EU, okay? And that's really what is the mouthpiece of Babylon, that whole beast system, okay? But it started with a nation, and that was Great Britain. Okay, so let's start off with the leopard. All right, you have these pictures that represent Alexander the Greek, and he was always depicted with a leopard on his horse or on himself. Okay, so you have another picture there, the leopard on his horse, and then you have this one right here, which depicts him with the leopard on his horse. You see, so that great empire that started off with the Greeks, later to the to Germania, Major and Minor, okay, and then the Roman Empire, which is the dragon. And after a 1,000-year period, when the dragon fell, okay, because he was wounded unto death, after 1,000 years, that empire came back after the Dark Ages, which is when Jake ruled, okay. So after the Roman Empire fell, all right, they went into the Dark Ages, which is when Jake ruled, okay. And then after the 1,000 years, Edomite started coming back unto power, and it started with the Renaissance, and that word Renaissance means rebirth, okay, which it wasn't the rebirth of culture, it was the rebirth of the Edomites. It wasn't the rebirth of music, okay, because there was music before and even after the Dark Ages and during the Dark Ages. And it wasn't of literature, okay, because there was literature and there was order during the Dark Ages, okay, but they call it the Dark Ages because of the dark people that ruled, and there's even Russian icons, okay, which were from the Dark Ages, and it's dark-skinned people, okay, dark-skinned people with woolly hair. People want to say that it's the type of paint they used. Over time it gets darker, which is not true, okay, in the sense that they're trying to use it, because they were depicted with woolly hair, they were depicted with woolly hair, black woolly hair, and brown dark skin, so the Russian icons during the Dark Ages, clearly there was art, okay, that was involved in those times, So all these things are things that Esau Edom tries to hide, iconoclast. But it started with the leopard, which depicts the Greeks, which is the first rulership, that took over and that was recorded in the scriptures. This is First Maccabees chapter 1, and starting off at verse 1, it says, "And it happened after that Alexander, the son of Philip the Macedonian, who came up out of the land of Shittim, has smitten Darius the king of the Persians and the Medes." All right, who took over the Persians and the Medes? Alexander the Greek. It says that he reigned in his stead the first over Greece, because they were considered to be Macedonians, by naming themselves after the land, and then when they went into Yavan, which are the Greeks, when they went into Yavan, or Javan, which are the sons of Japheth, which were dark-skinned people, not the Israelites, but they were still dark-skinned people. Esau, what he ended up doing is taking over the lands and slowly but surely pushing out the original people, like he always does, and ended up calling himself of those lands and of that nation, so he called himself the Greeks, and he called themselves the Romans, which Romanius and his brother, that started Rome, were actually Japhite. Those are the ones that started Rome, and one killed the other for, I believe his name was Romao and Romanius, something by that nature, and one killed the other, and then ended up calling it Rome, the city that he was building. And after a long period of time, Edomites started creeping in, and started pushing those people out little by little, until eventually they took over the whole Roman Empire as well. The same thing they did with the Greeks, the same thing they did with the Romans, and started calling themselves Romans. And if you go to the so-called Jews now over there in Israel, they'll tell you that the Romans were Edomites, which they're talking about the ones that took over the original lands, or took the land away from the original people that were there. So it says First Maccabees 1 and 1, it says, "And it happened after that Alexander, the son of Philip the Macedonian, who came up out of the land of Shittim, had smitten Darius the king of the Persians and the Medes, and he reigned in his stead the first over Greece." So it started with that leopard, which was Alexander the Greek. As you saw those pictures, as you saw these pictures, Alexander was depicted as a leopard, You see? He was always depicted with a leopard sheet on him. This is an ancient painting of Alexander. You see? So this man was known as a leopard. And then it says, verse 2, "And made many wars, and won many strongholds, and slew the kings of the earth." You see? So it started out with, the Edomite supremacy started with Alexander. Which Alexander was actually, he would reverence the Jews, because they accepted him because they knew prophecy, and they knew that that in prophecy, the little horn, would, because in prophecy in the book of Daniel, it tells you about the he-goat, which represented the Greeks, and the little horn represented Alexander, and overturned the Medes and the Persian and the Medes, which was Alexander the Greek. So Revelations 13 and 2 says, "And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard." So the beast started with the Greeks, and his feet were as the feet of the bear, which is talking about the end or the destruction, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. So what gave power to to Babylon. Okay, so going on to the bear, you have what is called the Fancy Bear. Okay, it says Fancy Bear is a Russian cyber espionage group. Okay, it says cybersecurity firm CrowdStrike has said with a medium level of confidence that it is associated with the Russian military intelligence agency GRU. Okay, so the Russian are associated with the bear. You know, when you go into when you go into the bear, it says for a uniting, you know. So Russia is associated with the bear. Okay, which we see a lot of conflict right now over there in Europe, you know, with Russia and with Ukraine, which is a chess move by NATO and EU. Okay, trying to provoke the bear, you know, trying to poke at the bear. So it says, and with the mouth of a lion, and the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority, which is the Roman Empire. Okay, gave him his power and seat and authority. So NATO and the EU, representing all of that. And then you have in the book of Daniel the feet of clay that don't mix with the iron, you know. That's representing the weak nations and the stronger nations. They're not going to mix. Okay. Let me see. It was Daniel 2:33. His legs of iron and his feet part of iron and part of clay. You see? Part of iron and part of clay. So there's going to be weaker nations and stronger nations, you know. And you have 10 toes, and you have the 10 horns. Okay, part of EU and NATO and the EU, which was originally the EU or the EEC in 1957, which created the Treaty of Rome, which was 10 nations that created that treaty. You know, they want to say it's 6 now, but before, when you used to look it up, it would say 10 nations, you know, until they realized what was going on. Then they brought it down to 9, and now they brought it down to 6 nations, you know, but originally there was 10 nations. So that parts of iron and parts of clay is talking about the parts that don't mix, you know. So you have this thing called Brexit. It says was the withdrawal of the United Kingdom, okay, which is made of a few separate countries, from the European Union, okay, on January 31st, 2020. The UK is the only sovereign country to have left the EU over 47 years of having been a part of the Union. You see? And EU and its predecessor, the European Communities, as a member state. You see? And in 1970, you had a whole bunch of nations that joined, which goes back to Revelations 13:1. And I stood up on the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the names of blasphemy. Okay, these are going to be Edomite nations that come together, like it says in Revelation 17. All right, the waters represent nations and peoples. Okay, so these people came together to create this, kind of like just like in the times of ancient Babylon. Okay, in ancient Babylon you had Nimrod, okay, that created all these other countries, you know, created these other cities, and they all represented you know, a beast system, a system contrary to Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai. You know, That's what that whole thing represented, all right, back in ancient Babylon. You see? So the same thing's happening now. So that's why we keep a close eye and a close ear into these things that are happening with these nations outside, you know, like Russia and Ukraine, and the things that are going on with NATO and the EU, you know, because Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai, the way he set it up, these are going to be the signs of the end of times, you know, the wars and the rumors of wars, you see. So these are the things we're supposed to be looking out for, man. You know, so we're getting a little bit closer every single year. You know, it seems something new pops off, and we're getting closer to World War III. You know, and that's where we're at right now with Russia and Ukraine, and the United States trying to step in and, you know, do its wickedness. You see, so by the Revelations 13:2, where it says, "And his feet were as the feet of a bear," that bear represents Russia. And Russia represents the end of Babylon the Great. You know, Joel 2 and verse 5, "Like the noise of chariots on top of mountains shall they leap." All right. It says, "Like the noise of a flame of fire that devoureth the stubble, as a strong people set in battle array. Before their face the people shall be much pained, all faces shall gather blackness." Okay, and that's from the destruction they're going to see, you know, because they're going to see those missiles, man. The Most High is going to have it to where they're going to see the missiles coming, all right, and their faces shall gather blackness, which is talking about fear, you know, distraught, men's hearts failing them for those things that are to come, you see. So follow closely with these things that are happening, all right, with prophecy. So I hope that was edifying. With that, I want to hope that was edifying. With that, I want to give all honor, glory, and praise unto Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rakakodash. Shalom.